Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in Nerdy Talk do not reflect those of Anime Herald. Due to strong language, viewer discretion is advised. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's time for Nerdy Talk again. I'm Mike Ferrer, and I'm joined by the Fallon people.
Matt Brown.
Dorian Chadwick.
And returning, Anthony Simpson. I actually would have been back sooner, but I was actually on the quest to find Team Rock, and every time I got close to them, they kept blasting off again.
Oh.
I know, I made a really bad joke, people. Really, I had a surgery, and I just needed some time to get better. That's why I wasn't here for the last few shows, but I'm good enough now, I can be on.
Now that was funny.
Well, it's good to have you back. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back on. I miss being on the podcast, so I'm happy to be back.
So you guys, someone misses this merry group of psychopaths.
Someone has to. Unless he was just in ghost mode the whole time.
Hey, that was last week's title. Alright, well, I guess we'll start off with the obvious. What are you guys watching?
Okay, I'll go first. I am watching Log Horizons. It's basically another virtual reality MMORPG show. You know, it's the same old thing, kind of the same thing that's been done before. You know, they're stuck in this world, and they can't log out. All that other stuff, yada yada yada. But I don't know, for some reason I kind of like it. I like the design of the show. So I guess that's kind of attracting me to it. It doesn't look like a normal show, like a normal action show to me. But and of course Nobunaga.
Because Nobunaga is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching that too. That's really, I'm really liking it a lot. And that opening's great.
Oh, that opening's awesome.
Also
I guess I'll
guns.
go with, yeah. I guess I'll go with what I've been watching. I'm still following the same shows that I've been following since the start of the season. Gundam Build Fighters, Nori Kankan, Nagi no Asakara, Nobunaga, and Space Dandy, Wake Up Girls, and Lizard Barsters. I did when I was off. I did drop one show. I dropped Buddy Complex. Why I dropped it, I liked the mech designs because they were hand-drawn instead of CG, and I thought the mech battles were actually pretty neat. But the whole cast and the story was just so uninteresting because the story's like, well, this average everyday guy gets sent to the future to fight in this war between two superpowers over this element or this thing that provides all this power. And it's like, well, I haven't seen this done a bunch of times, and you know, the cast was just uninteresting, and I didn't care about the story. So I got about episode 6, and I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna watch it anymore. I did actually watch some things on my backlog. I'm just gonna talk about 2 of the shows that I watched. I watched Kami-sama Kiss, which I actually liked a lot more than I thought I would. I'm not really into those kind of shows, the sort of reverse harem type shows, but I actually really liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm probably not gonna buy it. It's not a show I have to own. I watched it once. I think that was probably enough for me. The other show I watched, well, another one that I actually really liked, and I'm probably gonna get, is a show called The Tomb. Basically, this guy who's sort of a neat, or basically, I don't want to call him a hikikomori because he does go out in public occasionally. He plays this game called The Tomb, which is sort of like a cross between Call of Duty and Bomberman, where you have to throw bombs at people to kill them. Well, it seems that because he plays this game, he got taken to this island where he has to play for real, where you actually have to kill people and survive to win the game.
So it's like Last Starfighter, only Bomberman themed.
Yeah. The only role and downside for the show is that the ending's kind of an open-ended one, and they're not going to make any more of it. At least I don't think they're going to make any more of the anime because it didn't sell very well. But it is a very good show. I mean, it's enjoyable for what it is. I mean, because the two main characters they're kind of unlikable at first, but they do develop them, and then they start to open up, and then you start to see that they're really not that bad of people in the end. But yeah, that's basically what I've watched. Not watching a whole lot when I was off. Just kind of was getting through my backlog of some live action shows and movies I wanted to see, and just playing some video games, and that's pretty much been it. What about you, Mike?
Well, personally, I've been watching obviously Kill la Kill. Last episode was just some sort of batshit loco that was just wonderful to watch.
Please give us details for all of those who haven't seen it.
I'm not going to be giving spoilers. Come on, I'm not going to be that guy. Okay, I was that guy last week, but anyway.
All right, I'll do it.
Anyway, otherwise, I've been watching Nisekoi. I've been watching my usual standbys like Tonari no Seki-kun, Strange Plus. And I kind of started up on Hamatora, but I really can't get into it, so I kind of dropped it again.
I had the same problem with Hamatora. It's like, I don't know. It's like Scried without the grit or something.
Exactly. It's like cheerful Scried, which doesn't work too well, except for the fact that you have a guy that's chomping down on a taser. But I mean that was just funny. Otherwise, I've been hitting the backlog a little. Just finished up Psychopaths for our Shredder piece. Rewatch Ica R16. Never gonna watch that show again. Oh my god, I hated my life after that.
God, that
one.
sounded awful.
Ica R16 is one of the skeeziest shows I've ever seen.
I mean, I watched the first series, and I'm like, I don't need to watch this anymore.
Yeah,
Once was
the
enough.
first one is pretty tame. It's like you get bored of the gimmick, but it doesn't do anything awful.
No, R16 it has it open up with I mean, one of the first things you see is barely 16-year-old Aika Sumeragi's tits and nethers.
Nice.
Oh, that sounds great.
It's creepy. It is creepy. And somehow every fight scene pretty much becomes this game of how many times can we shove a girl's ass into the camera.
Sort
I mean-
of like Ikitosen, where somebody's always like, there's always somebody's tits or ass in the camera. at a
Exactly.
moment.
Exactly.
Although I did like Ikitosen, but
But the writing was bad. The humor was just unfunny, and it's just halfway through your first episode, you're just sitting there like, okay, is there going to be an unmarked van outside my house in 15 minutes?
Don't tell Ben you like Ikitosen.
he's
Jesus.
probably he'll hear it, and then he'll probably have a fit about it. It'll be just like, whatever. You have your opinion, I have mine.
Other than that, I've been trying to keep my sanity with some really good stuff. I started rewatching Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex because I recently came into possession of the second series, second gig, which Sublime show. I just never got around to buying it.
It's a good show. It's a good dub too.
It really is. Manga did a great job with the dub on that one.
I need to watch it. I watched the first movie, and I have actually both seasons. I just need to watch it.
It's very different from the movie because it's a lot less surreal, a lot less existentialist. It's more of a straightforward, futuristic action show.
Yeah, rampant technology, that sort of
Right.
thing.
But it's a very good, well animated sci-fi action. So
And aside from that, I've started up on the second season of Yomengan. Basically, second verse, same as the first. Still a great show, well worth watching. How about you, Matt?
Let's see. I've been out of town most of the last several days, so my viewing has been a bit light, but I'm up to date with Kill la Kill, and that show just finds new ways to... what am I trying to say? That show just manages to get more outrageous with every episode, and it makes me laugh a lot, so good show.
Do you think we'll have them hurling galaxies at each other by the last episode?
I can only hope so.
oh my god.
But
For those
now
who
that you
don't
say
know,
it, so far their shenanigans have been kept down to earth. Yeah, that would be interesting.
relatively speaking. I mean, this is a show where you have clothing that's eating people and taking over their souls.
Literally down to earth. It hasn't gone into space.
True.
It's yeah, like
Well,
my favorite character in that show is Mako, the support character, and the main character's friend. She just cracks me up every time.
she is great. Also, oh, what's his name? The nudist beach guy is with his glowing pink nipples is great.
That's just it's like it's like it's funny, but it's also disturbingly not funny at the same time. It's the first time I saw what they were doing, I was like, haha, yeah, okay, that's pretty funny. But then every single episode, it's like, oh my god.
Well, it's a it's the censorship. They have to make jokes about it. Like one of the episodes it shows him standing there is all you see is this glow coming from his crotch and you see Mako's mom looking down making glances down toward the glow.
Of course.
So it's like you can kind of figure what's going on there.
Then we all know what she's looking forward to.
Exactly. Also, I've come to like Aragamagori,
Is that the big one?
the big dude, yeah.
Yeah, the big guy.
I mean, he's just a guy that gives no fucks. He's great.
It's just one of those shows that has to it has to both embrace and make fun of every trope and every anime cliche ever invented.
Absolutely.
So, gotta have the lowly pink-haired character too.
You gotta have your no-no.
Gotta have your Super Saiyan, that extra level.
Yes, you do.
I have those disturbingly close relationships between family.
Yeah, I mean, the whole that angle is kind of creepy.
That's another reason why Mako's family is good comic relief, because none of that shit happens in their family.
No, they just eat garbage croquettes. It's awesome.
Anyway, let's see. Other than that, I've just been keeping up with Space Brothers, which isn't hard because after you've watched all 90 plus episodes and realize the pacing of the show, you know that it takes 4 or 5 episodes for any minor plot point to be satisfied. So, but you know, and it's also kind of a it's totally for kids, but it's a good spirited show and I enjoy watching it. And the other thing is I started rewatching Kenshin because why not? It's on Crunchyroll.
That's right. I started watching that myself. It's a show that I never bothered to buy again because it was like 30 volumes long when it came out from Media Blasters.
Well, they did
Yeah.
eventually put it out on like sets.
Yeah,
so,
but the sets were expensive as hell too.
I got
Yeah,
them when they
it-
were on sale, so
Yeah.
I have all of the DVDs and it was like 20 of them. Or even more than that, I think.
Mm.
It's kind of crazy. But, you know, just after watching a few more episodes of it last night, I realized that I still just love the show. I can get enough of it, but it's been long enough and I'm really enjoying watching it again, at least until after Kyoto, and then I'll probably stop watching.
There was no Kenshin after Kyoto arc.
I kind of remember when I did watch it. I kind of did like that arc after that. I didn't think it was terrible, but
Yeah, the
I
ones-
need to watch it again.
The one with the Christians isn't terrible. It really gets bad after that.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that show one of these days. So I think sometime in the future I'll get to it.
Good idea. I mean, that was like one of those. I'm gonna date myself here as usual. That was one of those shows that was like a darling of the late '90s, early 2000s period. Basically, if you were an anime fan and you had never seen Kenshin by 2002, you were looked at like you had 4 heads.
Well, I only just watched it 5 years ago. That was the first time I watched it.
Right.
Well, we all do
then
have
again-
4 heads, Mike.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
again. I'm dating myself. This is like 2 different time periods. I mean, this is back when I was in high school.
At least you're dating yourself in the right direction.
Yeah.
True.
I was in college before I watched even one episode of anime.
I was in elementary school when I first watched it, so and potentially maybe might even before then. So
I've
Oh
been
wow.
watching since I was a wee boy. My uncle actually got me watching anime when I was like 6, 7 years old with Galaxy Express 999.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. I watched a lot of stuff that as a kid that I didn't realize was anime.
Right, like
I think most people do, probably.
yeah, because I mean we all had our Robotex, our Star Blazers, or
Samurai Pizza Cats.
Samurai Pizza
Yeah,
Cats. Yes.
that we have those, and then or the Tega Man Blade. There's that.
Ah, yes, Techno Man.
Techno Man. Sorry, I keep forgetting the English because I think I remember that was one of the first three shows I watched, anime
Mm.
shows that I watched before I knew what it was.
In my area, the Fox affiliate actually caught the the really early runs of like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I think most of them did.
Um,
I think
like they actually had them before.
boy got switched to Cartoon Network.
Right. Actually I was like 4 or 5 years old when Dragon Ball was on, so that's like 89, 90 when
Wow.
because they were doing some like trials for a TV run at that point. So it ran on like the Fox Kids for our local affiliate.
Yeah, I remember. I remember Dragon Ball Z, or at least where I was. Well, when I was a little kid, I think I was on Sundays. I think I was because I remember I'd get home from church and then I'd get to see part of it. But that wasn't my first one. My first one was Sailor Moon. I do remember that vividly, and I was 10 or 11 when I first saw it. So we're talking mid 90s.
Wow, I'm
Or
like,
no way, it might have. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was mid 90s. I think I was like fourth or fifth grade. So I mean, yeah. So it's been some time, but yeah, I do remember that distinctively. I mean, maybe that might have seen something like I didn't know it was that because I didn't certainly know that's what that was until much later. But I mean, I maybe seen some stuff maybe when I was younger, but I could be wrong. I don't quite remember if I did or not.
Sailor Moon was a huge gateway drug for a lot of people.
Oh, it was. Yeah, like for me it was.
Mm,
But then
oh,
again,
yeah.
like I didn't kind of get into it like I am now until years and years later. But
oh yeah.
for me, because I just was like, this is just like so. It's just like it was so different from anything I'd seen,
Mm,
and it was just like it just caught my interest because it's just like wow, there's like nothing else like this on.
yeah. It was one of those shows that just came out of left field. No one knew how to really place it as a show because it was just so vastly different from the rest of the field at that
Right.
point.
Yeah, but it came out at the right. It came out at the right
Yeah.
time though.
Oh
And
God,
then,
yeah.
yeah, and then that was the thing. It came out at the right time, just like Akira came out at the right time for doing what it's doing. Sailor Moon came out at the right time, and for what it did, being for being kind of a gateway show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
And
most folks have seen that have watched at least one or two more animes with some, like Cowboy Bebop or Outlaw Star.
definitely.
Well, yeah, especially the early no, not the early, sorry, the Toonami generation, and then the I call it the early the early Adult Swim generation,
Mm,
because like I then
Oh,
got
yes.
into I didn't really get into Toonami until early 2000s because my cousin showed me. We were on vacation. I think we were in Ocean City. He's like, "Oh, you got to see this thing called Toonami." And then of course he showed me that, and then that was when I got introduced again to Wing, and then DBZ again. It was the later stuff, and then just some other things, and then it took me a while before I got it. I realized that I probably should watch it, and then when I did, then I followed pretty much every day. I got home, and then I remember when Adult Swim came out.
mm,
That was really neat because they had some Western stuff, but then they also have they had Cowboy Bebop, which is where I
mm.
first got into it, and then they had
Like,
excuse me, then they had some of the other Gundam stuff on, and then like I said, AS had some things like I know it had Gundam 0083, and then it had Cowboy Bebop, and at least when I followed regularly, and then I kind of stopped after I started working. I mean, it kind of fell by
mm,
the wayside because wasn't staying up till like 1 in the morning, only then to go to bed and have to get up at 6:30 to be at work at 8.
mm.
I wasn't gonna pull that during my teenage years. Didn't want to pull that stunt.
Oh, Outlaw Star. Did that come out before or after Trigun? I'm trying to place it. It's like they're the same show. Outlaw Star
Yeah,
is Trigun in space.
pretty much.
Yeah, the TV series ran from January 8th of '98 to June 25th of '98. for Outlaw Star. Trigun is April 1st, 1998 to September 30th, 1998.
Oh, so about the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Okay.
guess Trigun is kind of Trigun in space too.
Speaking of Adult Swim Cartoon Network stuff,
Yeah, speaking of Adult Swim and Cartoon Network, it looks like Cartoon Network CEO Stu Snyder is stepping down.
From what at least I see on ANN and I've read about it, they're pretty much it's good fucking riddance, basically.
Pretty much.
Because a lot of them didn't like him. Well, a couple of reasons. One was, I guess, the big push trying to get live action stuff on a cartoon channel, and
Right, which
and then getting rid of good shows, and then somebody, which then actually posted an article on that thread about some other site, which somebody said about why they don't. It has something to do with basically marketing these superhero shows, and basically these execs are, well, girls don't buy toys. So
Yeah,
you know,
that's how
Exactly.
genre television works. I mean,
yeah, it's
look,
pretty much
look at sci-fi. They cancel anything that's sci-fi.
Yeah, well, pretty much standard. You know, the executive girls don't buy stuff. You know, standard sexist bullshit. But
I know the story behind that. The show Young Justice, which was a DC Comics, it was aimed primarily at teenage boys,
yeah,
did poorly as hell. It had like almost no viewership among that group, or it was like incredibly low. But at the same time, ratings among teen to adult women were sky high. But regardless of the fact that the viewership, even though the numbers were there, because it was primarily a female audience, they didn't want to run it because, as you said, well, quote, girls don't buy toys, and they killed it, which is incredibly sad because it not only is it sexist in its messaging, but at the same time, they also killed a really good show.
well, again, like I said, standard sexist BS. I mean,
Exactly.
it's a really unfortunate mindset. And they,
Well, and if we're gonna stereotype, why don't we equal opportunity stereotype? If women
Yes.
don't buy merchandise, it's also true that young men don't buy the shows.
it's just this really sexist BS stereotype
It
of
is.
women, and it needs to. I mean, some of it boils down to old white guys, but I'd rather not use that excuse for.
The problem is it boils down to, I wouldn't just say old white guys, but old white guys that live in the bubble of the comic geeks.
Oh no, yeah, I mean it's a really unfortunate mindset that these executives
is.
have, and I mean it's going to change. This attitude eventually is going to be changing. Now, how long it's going to take, I don't know.
I'm hoping for a day when they can just say, it's a show, there's people that want to buy stuff, we don't give a shit who's buying it. Let's just put whatever we're going to put out and see how it does.
yeah,
Well, I
Yes.
think there's some people who feel that way, but the thing is that's probably few and far between. There isn't enough. There isn't enough of that mindset to go.
There was a time when these executives thought that they could both predict and control what it was that people wanted, and for a time it seemed like it worked because they were raking in money hand over fist. But I think that whole model is being turned on its head, and you can speculate a lot of different ways as to why that's happening. But here in the U.S., I almost wonder if it's just that we're starting to catch up to Japan in terms of the number of or the portion of older people to younger people. And let's face it, as it's kind of a funny formula. As we get older, and most of us tend to make more money as we get older and have more disposable income, and yet just the fact that we're wiser about our spending decisions means that we're not going to buy any old shit just because it's associated with something we like.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, taking an outside example here, Transformers. I like my Transformers stuff. I would gladly line up for one of those $200 master grades, but at the same time, they're putting out these little dinky toys. I'm not going to waste my time on a lot of them.
Right, you're gonna buy what you want to buy.
Exactly.
Like I play video games, and I'm not gonna buy every game that comes out for a console.
Unless you own a Wii
I-
U, then every game's like 3 a year. Disclaimer, I own a Wii U and I enjoy it, but come on.
I will as soon as the game I want comes out for it.
But yeah, you're right. People aren't gonna buy, and you're right, Mike. People aren't gonna buy everything something comes of it. They're gonna buy what they with the show. They're gonna want to say like, okay, I like this show. I don't need to own every bit of merchandise. I'm just going to own certain things I want to possess because I like these. You know, like in your case with Transformers. Well, in my case, I'll have another one, which was the Gundam stuff when they used to bring out they used to bring out the action figures. Some of them. Ben, this
Hmm.
dating myself here. So I was still in high school when they were coming out here, at least. They used to bring out the action figures, and I used to buy a bunch of them. You know, I didn't buy all of them because I didn't have the money, but I bought what I could. You know, I bought a bunch.
Hmm.
You know, and I sort of wish they still came out here. I'd probably end up still be buying them, so I'd probably have like a whole bedroom filled with them and be like, what am I gonna do with these things?
And then you realize that if you're not playing with them, the whole term action figures is an oxymoron.
Yeah, just like I gotta buy Hot Wheels cars. They sit in their thing, but that's because I have somewhat collector's mentality in my head. But
I think we all go through that somewhat, and some people are collectors their whole lives. But I think most of us, it's like after a certain amount of time, it's like, okay, I've got all this shit. I don't want to dust it off every week, and I don't have enough shelf space to display all of it. And hey, I don't have any friends anymore, so nobody comes by to look at it. What am I gonna do with all this shit?
I also think that maybe he didn't take advantage of the streaming possibilities. I know Cartoon Network has their own streaming thing if you go through your internet provider or something like that. But for the other things like Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon, you had to wait years to get something like.
Look how long it took for us to get season 1 of regular show or Metalocalypse or any of the old stuff. They just announced it in about 6 months ago, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
And
I remember when it first came on, when it first got on Netflix,
and then what was the first thing they did? They complained that their ratings went down.
which made no sense because we're trying to catch up.
Exactly.
Never seen the first season of this stuff, and yeah.
They have such a rich content library of stuff that they could really just, if handled properly, they could really do a lot of brand building on these places where non-traditional media exists. Like,
Or bring a show back, possibly.
oh yeah, I mean, frankly, one of my favorite shows from Cartoon Network / Adult Swim was a 90-minute pilot or a 60-minute pilot that never got made into a full show called Welcome to Eltingvale. It's basically a show about this, almost like a D&D club that did geeky things. Like the pilot had something to do with like a really limited edition Boba Fett action figure. It was legitimately funny. The humor didn't talk down to the viewer, nor did it talk down to like the geeks. It was just, unfortunately, it didn't get the ratings, so they just.
Well, yeah, you can't sell things to nerd if you don't talk down to them.
Ouch.
I mean, you know how it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's also probably the fact that it's Adult Swim, and that's almost a whole different another thing entirely. But yeah, I think they said with this guy, he was responsible for bringing down Toonami or just limiting what Toonami could do.
Stu Snyder was around for about 6 years. Let's see. Toonami's first run ended in. Toonami ran from until about 2007. So he actually just kind of missed the backlash for Toonami dying the first time. Or 2008, it finally. Yeah, 2008 was the very last. It looks like, according to Wikipedia. So we can't really pin that one on Mr. Snyder, but. The push for the live action stuff, the general oversaturation of certain properties. Like, how is it that I can turn on Cartoon Network at any time of the day and see either regular show or Adventure Time as like two of the only shows on the block for the next 3 hours?
Yeah.
And generally walking back a lot of what they could be doing with that network.
Jeez. Yeah. Next thing I know, you're going to say that MTV should play music.
Yeah. Of course, I have jokes getting old now. I keep hearing that, MTV used to play music videos, yes, and then stop making that joke. It's bad now.
Now they got an MTV channel just for music videos.
Well, yeah, because the original one's now just all like reality show with air quotes and
Teen Mama.
Some shows I won't watch because I don't want to like melt my mind. Sorry, I like to still have it for a while yet.
I mean, it's kind of I brought that up, well, yeah, bad joke, but I brought it up to make a point that genre TV. Every station that does this sort of thing has a problem when the ratings drop and the thing that they were showing is not as popular anymore. And it's like, okay, well, we've got we've got this property still. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to just shut it down, or are we going to try to find a way to make money? And usually they do the latter because they want to keep their jobs.
Right, but at the same
Right.
time, it was like the reception to the live action stuff was incredibly toxic, if I remember correctly.
I
I mean,
think
Sure,
the
it
thing
does.
is
It
like
doesn't always work when you when you
No,
try
it did not
try
work.
things that are totally off topic. But
when you kind of putting things like Catch That Kid, which is it's nothing like a cartoon or
Mm.
any resemblance to any cartoon.
Or Hole in a Wall, which is just a game show hosted by Andrew WK.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But when you have things like a Spider-Man or Spider showing Spider-Man,
Yeah,
that actually makes sense why you would do that.
agreed.
There's nothing apparently wrong with throwing something putting a live action show if it's based on a cartoon. Although most of the time that's always a bad idea.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, if you want to do those things, if you want to try to get live action stuff, do it on another channel, or make don't throw something like randomly in there. Maybe like had a separate block for it.
Right, kind
Like
of.
again, like Toonami was, they came out. Granted, at first, Toonami had Western properties, and then it had anime, and then eventually went into all anime. And to get another channel example, Nickelodeon. You had cartoons during the day, with occasionally, like the live action game shows they throw in, or the live action shows.
Right.
And then at night they went totally different and throw in classic TV shows, and that worked. And it worked great because you had you aim at the family time and children time, children, the family at during the day. At night, you aim at the adults and the parent, the adult market, or the grown up market. I should choose when I don't mean adult. I don't mean porn, but grown ups, older people, and say, okay, here's classic shows, there's classic TV after a certain time. Here you go.
Exactly.
And they kept that market like separate, and it worked. And I think, if you're going to do that on a network, keep it. Try not to mix that stuff up. It usually doesn't end well. Like I said,
Right.
like we saw with Toonami. Some Western properties and anime, and then eventually all anime, but they kept that separate from everything else.
Right.
And I think that could have worked if you did, and you had titles that were good. Now, granted, I haven't watched Cartoon Network in a long time, but if you try to have all this stuff, you throw in maybe some not so good shows that they get made all the time, and with regular programming, and you don't try to block that off. Say like, okay, you want live action stuff? Here it is. Say here's like 2 hours of it. It generally doesn't end well.
Nah, and again, I mean, some of the stuff they put in was just. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't try just even if they did like an hour-long block with it was kind of known what it would be.
And it's like that's kind of like I said I was getting at. If you're gonna, like I said, if you're gonna do it, say like, okay, we're gonna have, say, in a 24-hour period, okay, we're gonna have our stuff during the day.
Right.
Okay, Adult Swim, say, which is okay, say we'll say graveyard shift viewing, we'll call it that.
Right.
Have that. Then we'll say during the day we'll have our shows. Say that maybe say 4 to 5 or 4 to 6. I'll just say 2-hour period. We'll say, okay, this is our live action stuff.
Yeah, this is our buffer. See how it works.
Yeah, we're gonna throw in our live action thing because we know that we can get views time because that's children are home from school, or some people who they're like our age who watch stuff. They're maybe they get off work and they're home. Okay, they want to watch it, and keep it within those time frame periods, and then have whatever else after until till then Adult Swim. But if you're just going to randomly throw it in there again, it generally doesn't work.
Not at all.
That's why they tend to have news. Well, at least here, at least in the East Coast, the news tends to all be focused on a certain. Like they tend to keep the news at a certain time period. Work with Cartoon Network if they would have said, okay, let's block an hour or hour and a half for live action stuff, but let's get some good. Not maybe some of these insipid titles, but get stuff maybe that either has linked to that or we think could work on. They'll still throw stuff on a wall and expect it to stick at any time and say, okay, this will be good, because it generally doesn't work.
Right. Would have been the smart way to go, and I doubt people would be complaining if they'd be missing 2 or 3 episodes of Adventure Time.
Yeah. As I said, they could have blocked that stuff a little bit better, but maybe now they got somebody else different running the ship. Maybe they can kind of get the network, back on the right track. I mean, it's going to take time. It's not like tomorrow everything's going to be all well. I mean, it's going to take, it's probably going to take months, if not years, to get it kind of start steering things in the right direction.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something where it's at this point, it's an endemic problem that they're gonna have to worry about.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to take years to get on the right track and get good leadership, not just from the president, but the people under him, to make the right, get to make the right choices, to get the ship sailing in the right direction.
Exactly, and right now they're in the best position to do it.
I mean, I hope they can. It was a great channel. I always kind of thought of it as like a grown-up Nickelodeon, basically, as I like to put it.
All right, moving along. On March 1st, the original season of Pokemon began streaming on Netflix. Unfortunately, this time around, Twitch isn't playing it. So, sorry, guys.
Well, I'm gonna have two things in that. One, I watched Twitch plays Pokemon. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
It really was.
It's because it's like it was all when I watched it. Or sorry, when I watched it, it was the when they went to the sequel games. I think it was Gold they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was the Anarchy mode. So
Oh, God. They're in Crystal right now, I think, actually.
yeah,
Oh.
well, yeah.
Praise the Helix.
I think someone. I think I bought a shirt that actually has something that has that on it. Something Helix. But on the other hand, though, I did start watching that on. I actually probably should have mentioned that earlier. I was actually watching that on Netflix, and it's the first season. With just the Indigo League, that's all they have. Unfortunately, they don't have the rest.
And it actually cuts off at about Cinnabar Island. So they don't even get through the entire Indigo League.
Oh,
I have a
Well-
feeling they'll probably add more as it goes on.
For those wondering, yes, it is the really, really, really bad 4Kids dub, where it's really badly dubbed, and where rice balls become donuts, even though they're clearly rice balls.
like here's
You,
your
you
dirty
could have just
donut.
said the 4Kids dub.
Well, yeah, but I have to,
Still
I have to
got
stick it to the man.
still it's got the legendary opening theme and a Pokemon
Hey.
rap.
Well, I listed that open original because heard the other day and I'm sitting at work with a hum that, and I'm just like damn it, I really can't be hitting that, hum that in my head. And between that and the Sailor Moon theme song, the English one, which I'm not gonna sing, so because
Thank
nobody
you.
needs to hear that.
But
Thank you, I guess.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm terrible singing voice, so it's best I don't sing.
Anyway, I found this to be actually kind of interesting because if we go back to earlier on, talking about gateways, Pokemon was one of the big gateway shows. Like
Oh, yeah.
for anime fans, it's one that was pretty much singularly responsible for a mass introduction of fans to the hobby.
Oh yes, I remember another
A lot of shows that came after it too.
yeah.
Mm.
Speaking of which, I remember when I was in 8th grade, my teacher's like, this like, oh, it's like this fad Pokemon, yeah, that's going to go away. I think soon that's going to eventually not be a fad anymore. Yeah, that was 99 or 2000. She said that, and we're
15 years
2014, and
Well,
It's
she's
still-
probably not wrong.
yeah,
Eventually, it won't be a fad anymore.
yeah, eventually. Well, she was saying that. But anyways, yeah, at some point it'll stop being a fad, but I don't.
My gateway should have been DBZ because it was the first show that I really saw anything of, and especially subtitled. But I wasn't interested in it at all, and I really didn't like it. It was really City Hunter that got me into the hobby, and the only reason I saw it in the first place was because a friend was trying to recruit help from other friends to man video rooms in the first JCon conference or convention. So that's how I got started. True story.
Yeah, but Netflix, as far as their anime collection is concerned, they've been making some good moves and a lot of bad moves. I mean, we know recently they added Attack on Titan, and what was about 3 or 4 months earlier they added Digimon. Now they have Pokemon. It makes you wonder what else are they going to add from the 90s anime collection, because I know a lot of folks have been asking to get a lot of the 90 animes onto Netflix, like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z.
The problem with Sailor Moon is that it's a licensing nightmare.
Yeah, that sort of reminds me of why some of the Gundam stuff has, other than Unicorn, being picked up by Nozomi. Why we haven't heard about that, because it's not that Sunrise doesn't want it. over here. They still want it put out, and it's not like none of the groups don't want it here.
Right.
But the rumor I've heard, and I think this was mentioned on one of the endcasts not too long after Bandai shut down, was one of the guys who used to work there, said that basically it's if you're going to license Gundam, it's going to be Gundam proper. It's you not cherry picking stuff. You get nothing or you get everything.
And
Right.
yeah, that
Yeah,
that sounds accurate. I was gonna say the real problem with Gundam, as far as I could tell, was that Bandai were the only ones able to release it, and nothing sold. That's not true. It's not that nothing sold, but I mean, generally speaking, they released a lot of Gundam properties, and not a lot of them were popular with people who actually buy anime.
Well, I mean, not everything can be a hit. But that's, I think, some of what's holding it back because, that's a lot of money you're going to put up front for
Right.
everything. And I mean, granted now, and some of them, the cost per aren't going to be as much because, like, shows that say Bandai did have, at least the ones that they dubbed, there's a dub for it. You don't have to pay
Right.
for it. It's already done. You own the rights to it. So that's done. And, of course, you don't have to pay anybody again. You don't have to pay the actors again. Since they already got paid, they already got paid.
Yes, you do, because you're buying the
Royalties.
rights to use their stuff.
No, I guess so, but
You still,
sorry,
even though it's it's because it's a finished product, it's going to be cheaper, but
Yeah.
you still have to pay for it.
yeah,
It's like-
I do. You do have to pay for it, but then there's, of course, the idea is that some of the stuff. I mean, some of the titles were good, and then there's some bad Gundam titles like Wing. But yeah, and I mean,
I don't know how Wings sold, but it seemed to be
Wings
pretty
sold-
popular with fans.
Wings sold
yeah.
incredibly well. That was
yeah,
one of their top sellers for Gundam.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, and it was because it was a big like Fujoshi fan bait.
Man, I said too loud, or else Aaron's gonna come down to Pennsylvania and beat the shit out of you.
Well, I mean, it was very. I mean, Gundam Wing was very, very popular with the female fans, and it's not hard to see why. I mean, and I don't say that in a bad way. I say that positively. I mean, there was 5 male leads, and they were all pretty boys by '90s standards. By today, I wouldn't call them that, but I mean is what it is. I mean, it's not hard to see why.
Yeah, it's not like it's 5-star stories
Yeah, but
or any of the other like super space shonen shit.
yeah, but that was kind of why it was a big, and plus too. I mean, I watched it the first time a few years ago, and I'm just like, wow, that's a very, very, very average show for the '90s. But I mean, at the time, it was probably very good, and it just didn't age very well. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's an entertaining show, only, but just that it's not. The story's just badly written, at least in my opinion. I mean, I could be.
No, those were some good points. Those were some good hits.
But no, getting getting back on topic with what you were saying about the '90s stuff. I wish they would put more Pokemon anime on Netflix, but there's another problem. With the exception of the first season and a couple other ones, most of the property, most of the titles are out of print here in the United States.
Yeah, it's easier for them to put something up that that one of the local producers has
Right.
a license for. So I
Well-
remember there was a time when before ADV imploded that quite a lot of their stuff was on Netflix. I mentioned
Yeah.
I think it was the last show we did. I mentioned Mezzo DSA and how I like that show, and that was one of the things that ADV put up on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean it's because like I said, the original Indigo League, full and proper is in print. Orange Island's through, I forget what's out of print, and then a couple of newer like Black and White's in print, and maybe one other one that Viz put out. Now I know this will never, ever, ever happen because they don't want to change what the perception is. But I wish somebody, whether Viz or somebody through a Kickstarter, would bring out over here the Japanese version of it, because I'd buy that. I know it'll never happen. And if someone Kickstarted, I'd throw a whole bunch of money to it because I'd like to own that. But I know that'll never happen. Just like I like to do that for Digimon, I'd probably do that for Hamtaro. I'd probably do it for.
the uncut Digimon's up on Netflix now, right?
The first season?
Digimon Adventure, yeah.
No, I knew they put it got released on DVD, but
Yeah.
that's the edit, that's the English edit, not
No,
the.
they put the Japanese up there too. It's you have to
Huh.
look for it, but it's a different title than Digimon.
Yeah,
It's
I know
like
it's, well, it's something
it's
else.
like Digimon Adventure, something like that.
Because I know Netflix had it, but or not Netflix. I know Crunchyroll had it, but I heard those subtitles were really like bad, like really bad. Well, I know they've had some problems lately with translation errors. I know that. But that I think was one of them really early CR titles when they went legit. So I mean,
Hmm. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely up there.
yeah.
I'll
It's
have to
under
watch that.
Digimon Adventure. You have to specifically look up Digimon Adventure. Yeah, now I'm looking at it right now.
I'll have to do that.
I think it's
But
the
yeah,
same
it'll
thing
never
for
hurt.
a lot of those '90s and some of those early 2000 shows. I know there's a lot of folks were looking forward for that when Yu-Gi-Oh had their little uncut DVDs come out and they stopped printing them. I know there was a lot of folks that were really upset because they really wanted to see Yu-Gi-Oh uncut.
right.
Yeah, well, they did run for a bit there, on YouTube had it for a while. This was years ago.
Hmm.
Yeah,
They ran it raw because I used to remember watching it, and then they just took it down one day. I was kind of still disappointed by that, but
Well, the reason why is because of all people that was running the raw subs, the raw version, it was fun. It was for kids.
it's just like
yeah,
no guns.
yeah, yeah. We're gonna point at you with our invisible guns.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
At least
Yes,
it
I
wasn't
made,
walkie-talkies.
and yes, I made a very very bad reference to Yu-Gi-Oh Bridge there. So yeah, that's what I was referencing. If you were wondering.
You just always wonder what are they pointing at, and then you see the uncovered, and oh, that's a gun.
Yeah, or like that how they did with One Piece, where they cut all the guns out and made some wacky,
They turn them into like
Water guns or something like
what
that.
some
oil?
really
Yeah.
like kind of like Rune Goldberg type contraption.
Yep. That was episode 2 or 3, wasn't it?
I never
Yeah.
watched it when it was on. Well, at least the
Well,
one thing is we don't have the One Piece wrap anymore.
thank God. You
Uh,
know, I actually showed that version of One Piece at a band about 2 months ago. If you've ever seen a room turn on you, that would be the show to do it. Because I got people so hyped up. It's like, this one's a show that everyone loves. It's One Piece. People were thrilled. Then I turn, oh my God, you should have seen the look from some of those people. Like, you would have thought I killed a dog.
They're like, you son of a gun, I'm gonna kill you.
Exactly. It's like,
or it reminds me of Gundam Seed, where people are holding pistols, and they're clearly handguns, but they changed it to look like laser pistols.
exactly.
They digitally added stuff in, so it still looks like a pistol, or it still looks like a handgun, but they added like a green like neon line, and then like at the tip of it they added like a glow or it glowed, so it looked like it was a laser, like someone it's like when they get lasers.
Ah, TV standards.
Yeah,
And I will
Yeah.
fire that laser unless you pay me $100 billion.
Not that much money doesn't exist in the world. You know, I tried watching a Pokemon dub a couple days ago, and I kind of realized something.
yeah.
Every single character is passive aggressive in that.
Well, I know that was the early one, so everyone's kind of still getting their very. Plus, they really made some bad jokes, but
Oh, yeah, but I
some of
mean,
them they couldn't they were untranslatable puns like that.
nah, but
Episode 4 with where Misty says, "Oh, I see a bunch of Caterpie," and then
mm,
Ash goes, "Oh, don't you mean a Caterpie?" And they go, "It's not funny because
yeah,
that's a joke that didn't translate because in the original she says Mushi 4 times, which means bug,
right,
and Ash, which is real name is Satoshi, and Japanese version says Ushi, which sounds very similar, means cow, but
right,
again, joke that couldn't really be translated.
right. But I mean, just the tone is like, even the Pokédex is incredibly passive aggressive. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it was pretty.
it's like, and stupid trainers. I'm serious. Like, wow, everyone hates him.
It's like, wow, it's like way to be a douchebag machine. Well, I mean, you also have to remember too, it was early, so people kind of are still getting their, and then plus two,
Right.
they had some people get replaced, little like early on. You know,
Oh,
they had
yeah.
some people dubbing, and then they swapped it out. And of course, then they changed it again. Come with when or Pokemon USA took over the dubbing,
Hmm.
which I
Yeah.
think they dubbed that in New York.
They did.
Yeah, that's the same
Yeah.
group because the group that dubs, I think, is the same one that did season 3 or 4 of Ikitosen, and
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
they do some other.
because it moved over to Tom Whalen actually directs the dub.
Hmm.
Yeah, because isn't that when Veronica Taylor fell off as Ash and she got
Yeah,
replaced?
she wanted to
Yeah,
keep doing it, but they said we have no work for you.
because they switched groups, and then everybody, like, all the voice actors got changed, so
Yep.
they all
So
got new.
Veronica Taylor was gone. Eric Stewart was gone.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were.
I can appreciate the well, going back a couple minutes. I can appreciate the challenge in translating Japanese puns because they're all over the friggin' place, and some of them just aren't funny when you translate them. Like I'm thinking back to one of the episodes of Great Teacher Onizuka when they're talking about this a trauma this girl had, and of course they pronounce it trauma or trauma, and Onizuka like breaks it down and thinks of Tora, which is a tiger, and Uma, which is what, a bear, something like that.
Mm.
And like this combo monster from this word that's horribly mangled in the first place, and it's just not funny at all in English.
Well, I mean, things don't translate well from
Oh,
one,
yeah.
and this is not necessarily even from Japanese to English. I mean, there's jokes that go from English to other languages don't translate. I mean, there's things they don't like, and I'll give you one that did work. The movie Airplane, where those two guys are talking jive. You know what I'm talking about. Who those two guys
Yeah.
are talking about? Well, in a lot of the other languages, that didn't translate well. That joke didn't work. They didn't get the joke. In German, though, I was listening to the audio commentary for it, and they said that in German it worked because how they did was they gave those guys a Bavarian accent, which is like a southern accent in Germany, and they just found that real funny. So that did work. A lot also too is, a lot of cultures don't necessarily have the same type of humor. Like the guy I used to former coworker now because he left the company I work with. I told you about his wife was from South Korea. Like she would listen to jokes here, like I'm trying to think, like sarcastic jokes and some of these other ones, and she'd hear them, and we would be, to us it would be hysterical, and she'd listen to them and it'd just go over her head because that type of humor isn't popular there. Because apparently in South Korea they have a lot of like feces jokes are pretty popular, like real like kind of toilet type of humor is apparently really popular.
Like doggy
like,
poo.
Yeah, like that's real. Like
You're
that,
nothing but a doggy poo.
like that, like they're like that's kind of like how their humor is. And she just said like it's, and again it's a cultural thing. Like he said, she was starting to eventually get kind of. I mean, eventually she did start to get to understand it, and it does find it humorous. But it's again cultural difference. Some things are funny in one language, one culture. Like self-depreciation humor is pretty much the good bulk of, American comedy. That doesn't probably wouldn't translate too well over in like another culture. That might not, like, that probably wouldn't really translate too well in Japan, for example, or Asia, really, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, my point about the puns was that in English, when we make puns, we generally, kids might find them funny, but when as teenagers or adults, we don't find them funny at all. It's just not that humorous to us. The number of puns that we can make in our language is fairly limited, but when you look at Japanese, any sentence you throw out could have a pun in it somewhere because every word they make ends in a vowel sound or an N sound. So there's puns all over the place, and a lot of their humor revolves around that, and kind of naturally, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But again, it's not all of them could translate from one language to another is tricky, and a lot of times it doesn't. That just doesn't always work. But you're right. I
That's-
do agree. They do have a lot, especially a lot more than English. They have a lot of, a lot of word pun. That again, like, word pun jokes and.
One of the things I find interesting in Japanese humor is that most of their, well, I shouldn't say most of their romantic comedies, but pretty much all of the anime romantic comedies revolve around high school students, whereas here in the States, romantic comedies tend to revolve around late 20s or 30 somethings. I find that interesting.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but the group who's been doing Pokemon since season 11 plus is Duart Film and Video.
That was the organization. Yeah,
Yeah, because they don't do a lot.
No.
They haven't done a lot of anime. They did some video games, some of them. See, like I know Lisa Ortiz is involved with them.
Yeah.
She's that, But yeah, so that's the other group that does stuff up there besides NYAV.
Here we go. They did
Uh,
they did Poke Park, 2, and Bullet Witch for games.
Yeah, I've only recently been doing the anime stuff. They've been doing
They did,
a number of films like Dirty Dancing, Cider House Rules, Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Yeah, they're traditional film. They're a traditional film group. It looks like
Yeah.
their animation stuff is mostly either really artsy or small stuff or Pokemon and Ikitosen.
Well, just season 3 and 4. I don't think they're
Yeah.
going to any more any of those seasons. Much to Benji's delight, they're not making probably not making any more of it. I beg to differ, but.
Mhm. But yeah, moving away from Ikitosen because if we're gonna have that, we're gonna pull Benji in for a cage match.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I don't feel like yelling tonight.
No.
Yeah. Epic
And
anime
frankly, I'm
rap
indifferent on the
battles of the
series
21st
'cause-
century.
I mean, it's a very. What's the word I'm going to say? It's not for everybody. I mean,
Right.
it's a very type of specific person. If you like really love ecchi shows, and you really love seeing stuff like that.
We obviously
Right.
have to have a rap battle.
Yes. Epic rap battles of nerdy talk.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very specific kind of, group that likes that stuff. And I think it's another show I haven't watched in 5 years or so. So I think the last time I watched or finished it was when Michael Jackson died. So
Maybe that would be
It's
a
all-
good topic for next time. Like the
Michael
the
Jackson died?
shows that we actually like, but should are or should be embarrassed by the fact that we like them.
Yes.
There's tons of that I can add.
Oh.
How many do I have?
I thought maybe you were going to say that we're watching shows about when celebrities died or talking about when Michael Jackson died.
Can't they be the same?
No.
Well, that might be a very interesting conversation. Might be a short podcast, but it'd be very interesting nonetheless.
True.
Very interesting 30
Yeah. Nerdy talk mini.
Or we yell at each other and stuff.
So anyway, let's get back on topic and move to our next topic. Media Blasters ditched the dub for Koide Oshigoto. Anyone has seen it? Koide Oshigoto is a 2-episode OVA about a high school student that goes into the adult game dubbing industry. It's silly, a little perverted, but it's funny.
Didn't Mega Tokyo make that joke ages ago?
Yes,
Except it was a misunderstanding. Because, haha, misunderstandings are so funny.
yeah, we're not gonna go talking about Fred Gallagher. The less we talk about him, the better. He's not even Japanese. He's from Wisconsin.
Yes, I think we know
we
he's
would
not
have-
Japanese.
Well, we
Yeah.
have to come from somewhere.
Exactly.
We know.
But yeah, anyway, I just thought this was an interesting one to bring up because in the past 2 years alone, Media Blast has been a company that's been through so much crap, dragged through the dirt so much. I mean, this is a company where in 2012 they were listed as dissolved by New York when it was like a filing mistake of some sort. In 2013 they lost the rights to some of their biggest titles, including Kenshin and Berserk. Plus, they surrendered the rights to Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei and Moyashima. and they had to close down pretty much most of their divisions to the point that AnimeWorks, Kid Media, and Tokyo Shock would be the only active brands they had left. Um, that October, they had to delay Rio Rainbow Gate until this year, although whether that was a loss or not is debatable. The Rio wasn't that good, but anyway.
Hey, somebody liked it.
True. Somebody liked it, so it was a tragedy for somebody.
Yeah.
And Koide Oshigoto is actually an interesting one because this is a title where, if you were kind of paying attention, the writing was definitely on the wall because they announced it was going to be dubbed on their Facebook page on September 30th, 2013. Excuse me. But if you flash forward to December 16th, they had some people asking about the dub. The Media Blasters account replied as follows. One issue, they have no M&E, which has made doing the English dub a problem. I almost hit the floor because in today's world, there are always M&Es now for foreign, but they insist that they have none, which may force a sub on release. I've been fighting with them for months now. And in January, there was another update saying, giving 2 more weeks, then I give up and do a straight sub. Kind of pissed off about it because I wanted this title to be our first in-house dub. So this is one of those tales where it's just another one that long line of unfortunate circumstances for the company.
I would like to break in, and I guess I'll just go first. This seems like a move along, nothing to see here situation. At least the way they explain it, it seems like they're having an issue with the licensor, and the licensor seems to be a less competent studio than most of the studios here locally have to deal with. And that's painful and something that's shitty to find out in the middle of producing the thing. But it doesn't seem to be related in any way to the problems that Media Blasters has had financially.
True.
I'm gonna kind of step in here, and this is gonna be kind of a controversial statement. And then again, what my opinion I state here does nothing to do with AnimeHerald.com. I kind of view Media Blasters, and I know this is going to be really kind of grasping at straws analogy, but I kind of view Media Blasters to some extent as I do North Korea, and I'm going to explain why. Media Blasters, you generally don't hear about them. Same thing as North Korea. You don't hear about them until they do something. They either do something to try to get attention, saber rattling. In North Korea's case, they're claiming they're going to they want to talk to, peace with South Korea, then, say, well, we're not doing that now. Severing the lines, phone lines, the hotline between both countries, or claiming that they're going to attack them, or they're going to fire something off. They're going to fire off, do nuclear tests. And, you hear about them. They say we're out of it for a while, and then you kind of don't hear about them for months off until they decide to do something again. Media Blasters is kind of the same way, except that, they're not enslaving their population for whatever reason, throwing them in gulags.
But they do keep doing those nuclear tests.
Yeah. With Media Blasters, you generally don't hear about it much until either they delay a title, or in this case, they couldn't get the rights to something, or they say something and then have a meltdown about it, like they did a few years ago, where the guy that runs Media Blasters wanted to stand in for him and kind of made an ass of himself. I think you remember that one, Mike, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, which again doesn't look good if you're the head of the company doing stuff that doesn't look
right.
Good. And I know I'm making that's a very kind of out of left field, kind of really grasping at straws analogy, but I just kind of see it that way. And I do kind of feel bad for Media Blasters because they didn't have always the greatest. They didn't always have the greatest titles, but they had some ones I enjoyed, and they they kind of were there for a bit. We're getting kind of going the etchy end. And and if they go under, I'm gonna feel bad because they had some stuff I liked, and I'm no, it probably never happen. I'm still waiting for Ladies versus Butlers, so I don't care if it's DVD only. I'm gonna buy that because I like that show.
They're kind of like they're kind of like how CPM was, and I'm frankly amazed that they've lasted as long. But not that I'm trying to put another nail in their coffin or anything. It's like they're this type of company that tried to stay diverse. They had a separate. They had practically a separate label for every title at some point.
Mm.
And they were just they're the kind of company that they throw things to the wall and see what sticks. And there's a lot of things that didn't stick for them, especially as the overall anime industry declined.
Mm.
Yeah.
But they were always there was a good B team for a lot of stuff. Like, they put out a lot of stuff that became like cult hits, stuff like Shinesman, 12 Kingdoms, and even Dojo Mark. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Well, I think it was Media Blasters that put out Moribito the first time, wasn't it?
yes,
Correct.
it was.
Now this has it.
Navis has it, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying
they certainly got licenses to good shows, and so did CPM, maybe on a lesser scale.
Like I said, I'm not saying MB's Media Blasters is a bad company.
No.
They did put out good titles. I mean,
Right.
all companies get bad stuff. I mean, no, even sometimes Funimation get bad shows.
Hmm.
So does Right Stuff less so because they don't release too much anymore. But or sorry, Nozomi, I guess I should call them that.
Right, but
I mean, they had, like I said, Media Blasters did get some good titles, and they had their share of good ones and their share of stinkers, and then there was a change in flux in the industry, and I'm somehow still surprised they keep staying afloat. Again, blowing back to my North Korea analogy, that somehow that country that's they can't take care of their own people, yet somehow they still exist.
hmm.
And I know that's a very bad and very, very controversial analogy because one country is basically more or less an absolute monarch where they throw people in prison for having the capitalist singing voice, and Media Blasters is a company just trying to exist. And I kind of do, on one hand, I do want to see Media Blasters kind of come back, sort of make a comeback and be good again, because then we have another company, another anime company still existing.
Right.
But on
Yeah,
the one
that's good.
hand, if they do kind of, in a year or two say, well, we're gonna have to close shop and that's it. I'll be upset, but at the same point, it'll be like, well,
Nothing can be
it
done.
just is well, it is what it is. I mean, and
Right.
somehow they still, occasionally they still keep the lights on. I know
Hmm.
they're only really down to one person, and they do basically just everything freelance they can to get stuff done, and and they still somehow, somehow they get that show to keep the lights on.
I can see
But
the headlines now. The company cited allusions to them as if they were similar to North Korea as the reason for closing down.
Oh,
Ouch.
I can see that being my 15 minutes of fame right there on Anna, and then have to get on and explain myself.
yeah.
That
It should be kind of in a way kind of
You
hilarious. but in
shouldn't
a
sound like you're
way-
looking forward to it so much.
No, I'm not going to make any more North Korea references here in this podcast, so that's probably the last time you're going to hear me talk about them.
In our last topic tonight, I'd like to talk about Psychopaths, the Prussian IG future crime series that will be hitting stores in March 11th. Recently, I had a chance to cover and review this, and as many of you know, I greatly enjoyed it. So I'd like to hear what everyone else thought about it.
I'll jump in since I watched this too, but I actually watched it when it aired, and I did a rewatch of it. Well, not all of it, because I got my collector's edition set on Monday. I rewatched the first 5 episodes, and once I watched those episodes again, I really remembered how good of a series it was so far. You do get this, it's kind of this dystopian future with the civil system and what it does. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember everything here. So I apologize if I kind of don't say anything or I start stuttering. But specifically later on, I remember that how they explain how the system worked and what the system is, which itself is actually very interesting. But I do feel it actually is a pretty good series. It was one of my favorites from the end. It was one of my favorites of the fall 2012 season,
Mm.
next to Chunibyo, which was I liked for a whole different reason than the fact that this was a good thing. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's on terms of a psychological thinking level as some Western properties, but it's definitely very good for what it does.
Mm.
I know they're making another season of it. I don't know when it's coming out. I'm actually kind of curious as to how they're going to um, work out the second season.
Yeah, because if I remember right, it wraps up pretty neatly, doesn't it?
It's not done in a way that that say no way you could do a second season. I
Mm.
think you could do one. Like they are doing one because it sold well enough in Japan. It's sold well enough to get a second season. So I'm kind of curious as to how this will get made. If it's going to be another, 2 episode series. If it's an Anatomia show, which I'm sure the second season will be, because they always have those odd. Um, they don't do full. They don't do like the normal 12, 13 episodes. They usually do like 11 or 22 for some reason.
Mm.
So I'm kind of curious as to what they'll do there. Maybe they'll do some kind of explanation. If I remember, and I forget if I sound like I'm kind of just taking pot shots here. I really haven't watched all of it in a while. So I'm kind of trying to remember everything that I've seen, and I don't remember if they do in the first season explain how the the civil system comes about. If they don't, if it didn't, I'd like to see the second season kind of give okay, how did they get to this point in society? Like,
Mm.
because we know that this is a society that they're pretty in terms of crime is pretty low. It's not. There isn't a huge amount of crime. They still have to have police, but they don't have courts anymore. Spoiler.
Right.
I like to see the second season kind of go, okay, we have this world that this thing exists.
Mm.
Let's go, okay, how did we get there? How did we get to this point in society?
Mm.
Was there something that um did we get to this point and just give more about them because of the Connie again. She did develop, and I think that she's
Mm.
also too again. Um, Sorry if I'm really sounding disjointed when I'm saying this, because again, I'm trying to go this off of memory here. Um, she does develop, and she is quite a strong character. At first it seems that just it's like, oh, it's just it's another woman who looks pretty, who's just she's
Mm.
in this role, and that's all she's gonna do. But she does become much stronger.
Mm.
She does develop. She isn't the same, like I said, she isn't the same kind of, you know, the idealistic rookie as she comes out when you first meet her. She's hardened a bit, as again, spoilers, person, but not, she doesn't divulge into the level of becoming the people that she's basically controlling.
Right. She actually grows there as a character, but not succumbing to the actual darkness of the city itself.
Right. Well, not so much the darkness of the city,
Well,
it's what she deals with. Because
the
I mean, you're
corrupt.
you're a cop. You're going to deal with
Right. The corruption
the
of the career.
well, not so much the corruption, but what you
Oh,
see, and she sees some pretty
Grizzly.
grisly, violent deaths. Like, and later on, there's a really spoiler, very violent one that she witnesses. That was really, I think, the big turning point of her character.
Mm.
But where the other characters, and they all mention this too. They had mentioned how like, oh, you're one of us. You think like them.
Mm.
You know latent criminals think like criminals. They because they sort of are. They can be. They think like they do.
Mm.
And then and the other guys, they're the people that they're her. These are the enforcers. They do develop them. We learn why
Mm.
they are how they are. Like, okay, why are they part of the system? Why are they? Why are they working for the police? We
Mm.
learn that. We learn how they became to what they are, and it's I think they could develop some of the cast a little more. Some of the side characters I think could have been worked, and again figure out the working with what the society, like figuring out, okay, like, so why did this system get created,
Right. I,
and how it got to that point that this has to happen.
absolutely. That would be a really interesting concept, actually. I mean, just like you said, to explore, to kind of give the why, the how and the why, and to kind of complement what we've already seen.
And because, and again, they do mention this early in the first episode, like why this becomes this way because people don't have, and again, it's
Right.
they don't. I guess this is because of the way this system is created, this sort of almost, in a way, almost kind of quasi-communist system, where
Mm.
they tell you, okay, this is what you're picked for, so this is what kind of job you're going to do.
Right.
You're adapted for or you're adapted for, say, to be a blue
And
collar work. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to do blue collar work all your life.
mm.
Where the main character, she kind of has somewhat of an initial Mary Sue kind of thing, because she's like scored A's in all of her aptitude tests,
Mm.
which sort of is a bit bit Mary Sue, like, oh, here we go, somebody who's a know-it-all and good at everything, and then of course you realize that she's not,
Right.
you know Mary Sue, because she doesn't know everything. She's does have to learn that learning to deal with dealing with the latent criminals, and dealing with the this dealing with the system, and trying to figure out these crimes that just get they're more brutal as they go along, and not being corrupt, not having that affect her
Right.
her mental state.
Mm.
Because when, again, going back to sort of like I said, it's sort of like a quasi communist, because people have done that, picked to that, their crime coefficient numbers, which now I remember what it was.
Mm.
Certain things affect it more because it's the one character says, well, young people don't have to deal with stress anymore because of this. Things affect them more because, like, the first, you remember the first episode, that guy trying to rape that girl, she was going to be set to be executed because her crime coefficient was so high. Because she was a victim, the system
Right.
said, no, she's a threat to society. She's now a threat because she had something traumatic happen to her, which
Right.
then, and Connie said, no, we're not kill her. Let's get her help, because she needs help. She doesn't need to be killed.
Right.
And again, then points back to the fact that, these people, they took a lot of stress
Mm.
away, again, because they're told what to do. They can still live their lives as they fit to some extent, but, like, you don't have the stress of trying to find a job because, okay,
Right.
you're told, well, okay, you score high, you're going to work, or you're suited for bank work, well, you're going to be a banker, or you're suited for, being a baker, you're going to do a baker. That's what kind of work you're going to do. And, that took that out. That took out other aspects of the stress that people go through in a normal society, in a society. So now things can be, things can affect them more now than they did beforehand. Where
Right.
people can deal with stress, like, oh, okay, stress is finding their job. They deal with that stress, where now if you take that out, you take out the idea as, well, we're just told what to do. We don't have to worry about trying to find a job because the system will tell us what to do. We apply, then, you don't have that. That's one last stress thing you don't know how to deal with because it just doesn't exist. It's removed from it's in a sense removed from existence, so you don't experience that, and then things affect you more because you don't have to deal with it.
Right. And they actually kind of expand on that in one of the episodes, I remember correctly. Was it like 3 or 4? It's one of the earlier episodes where Akane was talking with one of the latent criminals, one of the enforcers, in their off duty, and she was talking about how she could choose where she wanted to go, and he actually went off on her about how she was experiencing these quote unquote old world problems where the biggest issue was determining where to go instead of where you're told to go.
Right, and again, that's where I kind of was getting to, that she's might come off as somewhat of a Mary Sue with that, because people might say, well, she knows what to do. She, knows can't do wrong. She's, all this kind of smart, and then you realize later on that she isn't, because, she doesn't always, there's things where she could have done the right thing, or she could have reacted, but she didn't.
Right.
And that does, again, helps her develop, be more than just this girl who happens to be smart at everything. Could work really anywhere, the way they state it, and then gets over that I'm just not just this perfect character. I'm, a flaw. I'm a human with flaws, just like everybody else is.
Exactly. Any thoughts from the other guys? Matt, Dorian?
Well, I haven't watched the whole series, so I was kind of in and out. And like, don't spoil anything for me.
Yeah, sorry. So I tried to
It,
not. I tried to
it's
be
fine.
careful.
It's fine. I think I was able to take out some of the parts, but I watched the three first episodes, and in that first episode, I was thinking Minority Report, Judge Dredd, RoboCop, mixed in with a little bit of Silence with the Lambs, and all the things I was able to pick on some of the things you talked about. You know how she seemed very Mary Sue, especially when you have people talking about how smart she is. Like,
Mm.
you got a straight A on everything. You got a 700 on this. You could have done anywhere. But you're right. It does kind of delve. It does delve into that a little bit, where she could choose whatever she wanted to go, and while everyone couldn't. You know, like you said, she had the conversation with one of the guys, enforcers, and he was like, "When I was 5 years old, I was told where I was supposed to go. You had a choice."
You
And
know,
that could really set up for a lot of interesting dilemmas and
Right, because
many different things.
because he got picked at 5 to be a latent criminal, and then
Mm.
basically that was the end of his more or less his freedom. That was the
his
end of
life.
his. Yeah, because basically when you're a latent criminal, you have, like they said, you have two choices. You work for the police basically as a grunt, or you go to basically you're in isolation all your life.
Mm.
And or not. And
there's
I
like
don't mean
the
like.
there's like the
And-
pure girl, and then there's the then there's the Hannibal Lecter types.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not like
I
I mean by
ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
But yeah, I mean, they're given, you have, like I said, two choices: be run for the cop or prison isolation. And those guys chose police work because then, I mean, yeah, you're basically like in a sense that you sort of still have some freedoms because you're still allowed to be out. You're sort of still a society. Like you live on now. They say you're restricted to your quarters and the floor you work on. And if you go out in public, you have to have essentially like a chaperone. You have to have an inspector with you at all times,
Right.
to keep you in check. So I mean, they sort of still do have some autonomy or some degree of autonomy, at least in freedoms of what they're allowed to. They're still allowed to exist in society, but at the same point, they're also, again, they're kind of kept on a leash that you're basically essentially on borrowed time. We could dispose of you whenever if we feel you're too much of a threat, we will basically get rid of you. No questions asked.
I really like the dog analogy that they use in the show because if you think about it, it's absolutely true. They're only allowed out when their master takes them out, and they're only allowed as far as at least you'll let them go.
Yeah, and then again, it's a sort of pointing back to against a society thing that they're showing you that you're going to let you exist, but you're basically borrowed time. When your usefulness is gone, when you become essentially your crime coefficient's too high, we will eliminate you, and that's it. We'll eliminate you, and then we'll get somebody else when the next latent criminal comes along.
And
If we can't rehab them, they're going to replace you.
and those eliminations are gruesome. My God.
Yes, that was they were very violent.
Yeah, in the first episode, I was freaking caught off guard. It was like execution mode. It's like, oh, it may not look that bad. And all of a sudden he blows. I'm like, holy fucking shit!
I mean, you
This is
see
some
it just
terror shit.
you see it just like bubble up and then just burst from the inside.
Yeah,
The people literally implode into blood balloons.
I know that's pretty. I was at least, and it didn't hit Goro level. Like, it didn't really get real violent, like blood sea levels or the Future Diary levels of violent. But I mean, it kept that violent level, but it didn't make it like shock value level or over the top. I mean, maybe you could say the whole idea of them like bubbling and then exploding is like might say that's shock value, but I mean they kept they kept it tasteful in that.
Oh yeah, they at least kept a lot of it off screen, thankfully.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, I saw one that was censored, so I mean,
Mm.
it's
And
nice to
that's
see it
kind of
uncensored.
and that's why I kind of say it's probably where that's where the Judge Dredd part comes in, or kind of like the Robo part comes in, because you have this gun that essentially tells you when is the best option to do. Like, is it best to paralyze him in that moment? When it's best to paralyze him in that moment, or should you just flat out kill this person?
Mm.
And I just think like you're letting this machine technically decide. I mean, you still cannot pull the trigger if you don't want to, but this machine decides whether or not you're either going to shoot or not shoot.
Mm.
And if you do shoot, are you going to kill them or are you just going to stun them?
Another one that reminds me of is, and as well as reading here, and the Wikipedia page it did remind me of was Blade Runner,
Definitely.
where you
Oh
have
yeah.
cops who their purpose is to basically track. Well, the difference is they're in psychopaths are on tracking down or not tracking down androids. But that sort of reminds me that you got a dystopian future where they're in like and again in Blade Runner they're tracking down and have to kill these replicants who aren't supposed to be on the Earth. They're
Right.
not allowed on Terra. They're off world only, and that kind of on the whole it's a dystopian. That similar dystopian kind
Mm.
of what that they have to kill to basically do their job, and that's kind of what here reminds me of that. Where we don't real well here that in the United States it's not you kill if you have to, if the situation deems it. But
Mm.
where here it's the system determines do they live or die. Essentially,
Mm.
the police and again they become judge, jury, and executioner all in one. Because
Right.
they do mention that in later episodes. Again, spoiler for anyone. They don't mention they don't have a court system anymore, or at least courts in that sense. They dismantled them years when the civil system came in. They don't,
Mm.
and then it also deals with how do you deal with people that the system can't. Which and this comes the theme later on. What do you do with people who the system can't judge?
Mm.
Shocker from the ghost
yeah.
mode.
No, but what do you do with how do you deal with people who they're outside of the system in the sense that not that they're like people who are trying to be a little off the grid, but people who the system they could be part of the system in the sense that the system could recognize them, but they don't. The system can't determine are they good or bad. They can't determine that.
Right.
And then they go like, well, do we bring back the court system because the courts have been disbanded for so many years since the system existed. Do we bring it? Do we bring it back? Do we bring back the court system? And again, what do you do with people who the system can't judge?
Mm.
They can't be judged.
Right.
But as a whole, though, as a whole, though, the show itself is actually very good. I mean, I know the Natomia block's kind of gotten some flack over the years for having some less than quality shows. And I mean, quality is subjective, but they really had some good ones with the fall season with Robotic Notes, which is another good show if you haven't watched it, and Psychopaths, which I think was probably their best, and well, I don't want to say to date because I know they had some hits in the past, but I'd probably say in the last couple of years, I'd say that's probably their best.
Mm.
They're now in the Natomia block, not Natomia itself. And they're not the ones that created it, but their block, the Natomia block, that's I think probably one of their strongest shows in at least a few years.
Oh, Noi Tamina, which is animation backwards.
Yeah, I know. I know what it is backwards. I apparently can't say anything right.
I didn't know that at first, so I figured I would mention it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, well, Robotic Notes is a completely different show than Psychopaths. Not even close to the same terms of. I mean, that's a good show too for what it is.
Mm.
It's funny when I first started watching this show, it reminded me a lot of Eden of the East in subtle ways, and I realized that's also a Noi Tamina show.
Yeah.
It should also be noted that this was written by Gen Urobuchi, I think it was,
Yeah, guy who
who
did Monica.
Madoka Magica.
Yeah, the show I didn't care for.
Mm. Yeah, but it might be relevant to some people that did.
No, it is. I mean, it's he. Well, he did other stuff.
Oh yeah, he
Well,
d
it's well, with Nitro of Yeah, he does a lot. He does a lot of stuff for Nitro Pass, which is they make a lot of visual novels.
they did Guilty Crown.
Yeah, the show that you didn't like, but I did.
Oh, I hated Guilty Crown. They
They
also
did one. The one that his plot, the one that he did was Say no Utena, which is very violent. I hear visual
yeah.
novel. I've heard about that. I heard it's very violent.
I've heard it's very good though.
Yeah, it is. It's very good. Very violent, but very good.
Just from the title, Guilty Crown sounds clever, right? Because it's like you immediately, well, at least in the States, we immediately think of Jesus Christ, who bore the crown of thorns that sort of, in a way, represented all of the sins of of those who came before him, and he was cleansing them of it or something. But you know, typical Japanese show, they don't realize the gravity of the symbolism they're using, and it all falls apart.
Right.
Well, like I said, I mean, I like the show. I mean, it's not a masterpiece, but I mean, I enjoyed it.
It's not for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, there were people who liked it, just like there were people who like Fractal
Okay.
and
Wow.
Blood Sea. That one's the contentious one there.
Yeah, I like Blood Sea.
So did I, but apparently you
yeah.
don't say that to certain people because apparently that show's hated.
Well, the thing is,
Adding Clamp? Whoa, controversial.
Wow.
the problem with Blood Sea is that it wasn't the fact that it was Clamp. It's the fact that they took the established property and went way off the deep end with it.
Well, I don't think
They
it's
clamped it.
Yeah.
Ah,
I see what you did there.
I mean, I think if they, I mean, they kind of went all over the place a couple times with some of this with Blood Sea, and I think that was some of it. I did like it. I mean, I also like the movie, which again, a lot of people seem to hate. A lot of people hate that film because they said it's about a whole bunch of people you don't like and it's a boring action.
Oh. I like the movie. I never got around to writing it up, but honestly,
I thought you did. I thought you did write about it.
The movie I never got to. I never got
I
to.
didn't read the TV series. I thought you wrote the movie too.
The movie was always on my to-do list. It's just one of those things where it just kind of fell through the cracks. But I guess I'll give the 5-minute review here. It's a lot more straightforward than the TV series. Yeah, it does introduce a lot of characters that are pretty much cannon fodder, but generally they're not as important. It's mostly about Saya and how she's going to deal with that guy from the Gimo Cafe that ended up being some crazy wealthy capitalist dude. And as long as the action scenes were great, the fight choreography was top notch, animation was fantastic. It was a great way to close it off. It was a fantastic act 2 to the series, pretty much. Could it have been stronger? Absolutely, but given that it could have also been far, far worse, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I really did like it too. I mean, we're not. I know it's, we're not. I know that's not. This is not talking about Psychopaths, but yeah, I did like that. I mean, I know a lot of people hate Blood Sea, and I mean, okay, it has its problems, but I still thought it was a very good. I still thought it was a very good show. You know, I thought it was a good show in the end.
The original
Absolutely.
Blood is something that, Production IG did a few experiments with that general theme. Like, one of the things they did a little bit before that was the what am I trying to say? Oshii didn't really want to get involved with this title, but he sort of did in a big way, and it was Jinro. and that's sort of it reminds me. I'm getting off track. It reminds me of something that Miyazaki has tried to do, like find some way to retire, right? And Oshii kind of passed Jinro, which is pretty much his entire idea, onto someone else, and then he didn't like what that someone else was able to come up with, so he sort of got involved, and he produced this sort of experimental thing that was related to his live action films. And then I got the same vibe from Blood, in that it wasn't a long thing, but they did some interesting things, in the sense that for one thing, the main character was speaking throughout the film in both English and Japanese, and it was sort of an unconventional action film, in the sense that almost everything that she did was lead up to the action, and the action itself didn't last very long, but it was strangely compelling. Like you're suspended, and like you have this suspended anxiety waiting for the hammer to fall, and once it does, it's like, well, yep, she owned it, and now it's over. On to the next thing.
Good job, everybody.
I'm totally getting off track. I really wanted to talk about Psychopaths instead.
All right, well, why don't you?
All right, here we go. Okay, lead in. This is also a Production IG title, and I'm not going to say that much more about the studio, other than they have been the most consistently good anime studio in my recent memory. Everything that I've chosen to watch from them was good, and it's not just stuff like this, gritty horror dystopia type stuff, but also things like Usagi Drop, which was it was totally heartfelt and honest, and just totally endearing. And if I were capable of thinking of other adjectives that all explain the same thing, then I would. But yeah, and even going slightly farther back, they are responsible for Aaron the Beast Slayer, or the Beast Player, excuse me, which is an amazing series, and Morty Bito, also amazing, and yeah, so I have a very high opinion of them, TLDR.
Yeah,
So,
Production IG does have a lot of good shows under their belt, like what's the other one?
yeah. Well, and I suppose I should have mentioned, Attack on Titan, which is also them.
Well, that's good for different reasons. Well, that's way,
Yeah.
but that's technically.
Also, I did Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, which I haven't.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pat
well, I haven't
Labor.
seen. Yeah, Pat Labor.
Pretty much any Oshii title is more or less by them, except for the live action.
We don't talk about those.
Hey, I didn't hate them. I've seen 3 Oshii live action titles, and I liked 2 of them. I think that's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah.
I think 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
All right, so getting back to what we were talking about with Psychopaths, a few things jumped out at me. I mean, like Mike said, that when I didn't actually read the premise of the show before watching it, and that was kind of on purpose. But just like Mike said, I definitely got a Minority Report vibe when I read it, because, or when I watched it, because it's very system oriented. Like, the system decides who is guilty, and the important point is that it does it before they've even done something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very Big Brother 1984 like, you know.
Well, yeah, that is very. Yeah, that is very 1984 Big Brother. Though people say the United States is heading down that route. I'm not sure of that, but
Yeah, well, I've seen
I mean,
I've seen movies that suggest that the UK is headed the same direction.
well, yeah, I mean that might be a possibility if you don't let things
Children
in
of
check,
Men,
then-
by the way.
yeah, if you don't let things in check, that's a possibility. We can end up something like that.
Well, and that's the whole point. And it's actually a point made by 1984, who watches the Watchers.
Yeah.
So in Psychopaths, we have this Sybil system, which, let's see, I've got a definition for that. The Sibyls were oracular women believed to possess prophetic powers in ancient Greece. That's from Wikipedia. So we've got this system named after, obviously by somebody who thinks that they can predict human behavior to the, absolute finest detail, and can predict who's going to become a criminal. And that's a big theme in the series. Whenever the system brands somebody as a criminal, they can't get out of it. And that's kind of supposed to be a warning sign, in the sense that, think about in modern society, people who are, maybe they actually did something and they went to jail. Mm-hmm. These people are branded for life as criminals. And they can't seem to get out of it, right? They get out of the jail. They have no right to vote. They can't get a job because they are breaking the law if they don't report to the prospective employer that they've committed a crime and been convicted of it, and they're basically fucked. So that's definitely a theme in this show, that once you're branded, you're fucked, and you can't ever clear your name. Right?
There's no trial. There's nothing. It's you've been judged. That's all you are. That's all you get. That's all you are. That's all you ever will be.
So we've got this group of people who are branded as criminals for various reasons. Like one of the characters was the system decided that he was criminal material when he was a kid. So he is sort of, he works for the police because he has no other choice. And there's another guy, another couple of guys who are, appropriately 20 to 30 something and middle age. And it's the same thing. For whatever reason, they were branded by the system as criminals, and they have to work for the police, and they have no other choice, and they have no freedom. And it's like, the irony of the situation seems to be that all of these guys who have been branded as criminals, they're already past that. So in a sense, like, if nobody stops them, they can do whatever they want. And because the system already thinks they're criminals, it's like it's up to the people that handle them to decide whether to punish them or not. So they sort of have more freedom than everybody else, and that's something that really struck me about this series. You know,
What really
if you consider the new girl, she's under a lot more pressure than these criminals that work for the police department.
Christ, wasn't one of the early scenes two of the enforcers kind of, Akane walking in on them, kind of
Yeah, having
finishing
the
up relations.
yeah, there's that the doctor lady and then that other well, it was like they were having a lesbian
Mm,
love scene, which don't say anything, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and
Totally.
in what you're true that you do get more freedoms, but at the same point,
Mm,
you're kind of also on borrowed time because they can't go out. They're not normally supposed to go out in public
right.
without the inspectors. So essentially, they're treated again, and the system has determined that they're a criminal. But at the same point, they're also sort of on borrowed time in that they're there. They do help the police, but that's all you're treated as well. You're not police. You're essentially just doing bitch work for them.
Mm,
You're doing all their dirt. You're the grunt. We can replace you if need be.
mm.
That's
What?
true, but if you think about the the end game of such a system, like or rather the end result is that it's I think back. Well, I shouldn't get in too much detail, but I think back to a piece of software that's related to genetic algorithms called the Game of Life, where you you start with all of these possibilities, and the program just sort of works through them on a semi-random basis, and it's related to evolution in the sense that it either winds up finding a way to keep going or it just stops, right? So my idea of a system like this is it just, in order to keep going, it's going to label more and more and more people as criminals. So the people who are already labeled would tend to have an advantage over the people who haven't.
Yeah, because
Mm,
there's also that thing where I think they touched on the first couple episodes where at even a temporary lasting judgment or time, someone's score can go up and their hues can change in a
mm,
moment's notice for just any sort of reason. And that's a real difficult thing. It's like, can you really brand
mm.
them on a crime of passion? Or, like, say they walk into their husband, say a woman walked into her husband cheating on her, and she knocks the husband over with a lamppost. Can you really judge her as a full blown psychopathic killer
Mm,
criminal just because of that one thing?
absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a system that things can and, as you see, definitely do go too far. But to back up what Matt was saying, I kind of find it interesting if you look at even the personalities of the characters, though. Um, if you look at, say, um, Akane or her partner in comparison to some of the latent criminals, it's like the latent the enforcers in particular are very vibrant people. They're a lot more shit. um, they're very vibrant people. They're a lot
Free.
more relaxed and free in a lot of ways than, say, Akane or the partner, who have to keep up this whole persona of being straight laced and in control at all times.
Well, and I should clarify on what I was saying about that. The concept of freedom in captivity is something that is not foreign to American literature. if you, and honestly, I have no idea why I remember this, but I remember reading a piece by Henry David Thoreau, which it's about civil disobedience, and in his case, he was protesting the poll tax by refusing to pay it because in his time it was a way to disenfranchise black voters because they didn't have the money to pay the tax to go to the polls and vote. But something that he wrote about his time while in prison stuck with me, and that he said he said because I'm paraphrasing, but he said because he felt that he was doing the right thing, he was a free man, even though he was locked up. And I don't know why it made me think of this just watching this show, but I got the same sense of these people who are already branded as criminals. They can they can't necessarily do whatever they want, but they can think whatever they want without any retribution because they're already branded. It's an interesting dichotomy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in one of the episodes you see one of the inspectors kind of getting angry, losing his mind, while all the enforcers are just there keeping calm and keeping cool while coming out with a plan. And it's really like, so who really is free here? Who's really in control?
Oh, did I accidentally give away the later parts of the show that I haven't seen?
No, because it does bring up some later. I mean, they do bring up, and they do show in the later episodes, and I won't spoil this for anybody. They do show like the system itself and how. See, I don't want to explain how some part of the system because I'm going to then actually spoil it, so I won't say that. Yeah, because that part was that caught me off guard when I saw it the first time because I'm just like, I didn't see that coming at all. Like, and I don't mean like an ass pull way. Like they just came out with something like, I mean, like I just didn't like expect that. And then of course they explained the system a bit, like how some things are determined. Like, I won't spoil here, but it did catch me off guard, and how it was something that was really surprising. Of how, but you're right. These people that the people who are already criminals, they really have nothing to. In a way, they have nothing to. Latent criminals, sorry. In a way, really, they have nothing to lose because the system already determined them that they're potentially a problem. So they don't have to worry about. They essentially don't have to keep up appearances in a sense, not physical appearances, but in the sense that they're already essentially labeled potential criminals. So they can kind of be themselves because they know, well, if I can be myself, the system's already basically he's marked me as bad, or has marked me as that I could potential threat in the future. So I can be who I am because I don't have to worry about it. Where the people who are not, in a way, they almost have to kind of, in a sense, kind of cut. I don't want to say censor themselves, but they have to sort of cut back a little bit on who they can. Who they really are because, they don't want to necessarily be, maybe they're not who they say they are. Not, well, sorry, let me rephrase that. They don't want to let all their true personality out because if they do, they relax and cut loose a bit. They could be right, boom, they can basically end up like them. Latent criminal, and then you're basically. I mean, then you can cut loose, but then at the same point, you can't get out of that trap. It's sort of like what Matt said. Once you're part, like in morality here, once you're marked a criminal, you don't lose, you don't never become a non-criminal. You're always a criminal, whether you served your time. You served your time. Say you got treatment, so you don't relapse. But you're always a criminal, even though maybe you'll never commit another crime. You'll live a straight, narrow life, and be a member of society, a good member of society. But you're always a criminal. You're always going to be that label on you. It's just somebody like who's an alcoholic, and they get treatment, they never drink anymore, but they're still in the end, but they're still an alcoholic. They're still always going to be an alcoholic, even though maybe they never, maybe they never touch a drop of alcohol for the rest of their lives. They're still going to be, an alcoholic.
Um, but it's this might be a little bit backtracking. When you mentioned about the stress thing, you actually look, and they actually do show glimpses of what their daily life is, and it's like they are really spoiled here. The fact that your clothes are kind of already picked out for you, all you have to do is press a button to change your clothes, or like you can make your living space look like anything you want it to look like.
The hologram maids.
Yes, and then having the food, choose the calories how many calories you want it, what kind of food you want. It's like they are really spoiled, so spoiled to the fact that they won't even show real police officers. They show these little cutesy big head bobblehead things as the police officers.
Well, and this goes back to what I said, society and what the oldest enforcer. Hold on here.
Matsuoka.
Yeah, Matsuoka says, "Oh, you people don't have to deal with the stress of this, like before." So that's why things bother them now, like people getting like in that first that lady being raped, attempted rape. It affects her more, and then maybe some might say that might be somewhat of a sexist opinion because saying, well, it didn't affect people before and it always did, but because certain stresses in life are already removed for you, like again, getting a job.
I think I think it's sexist in the sense that it's a crime against a woman, but the overall point was that anybody who suffered any trauma whatsoever was branded as a potential criminal because because they were rattled by it.
Right, but and also going back to is that what Masaoka says is that you people don't have the stress of before, the system basically removed it, and again, I'm gonna say sort of like to the quasi, at least with the job part, quasi communism that you're told what to do, but everything's chosen for you. You can choose what to wear, or what type of living thing you want to look at, what kind of overlay, well, what here's what your calories you took. Okay, this is what I think you should have this morning. No, I don't want that. That's all determined for them. So a lot of stresses that we now as a society, people, I shouldn't say as a society now that we've dealt with all from the past, meeting the clothes, all that stuff is now removed. They don't have to deal with that. So stuff does, and then shows that stuff affects people more now because certain things, elements that people have always had to go through are now taken out of the equation. It's done for them. And like they even make a point in episode 4 where there was somebody who's unemployed. Well, and in the sense that he's not like unemployed, like he was working, then he got terminated, is that he works with some like people who make YouTube videos and get paid for it. Because even Connie says someone's unemployed in this day and age. And like makes a comment like that, even with the system that they have that does everything for you, there's somebody who chooses not to work.
Yeah, and they were actually incredulous about it.
Yeah, and they do, they do kind of make that. It makes that point that it's a society again where things are done for them. Well, not done for them, but they're told what to do. So a lot of the stress is that people normally are associated with, going in even from youth to adulthood, are to some extent removed. Like again, the job, clothing, overlays of apartments, that kind of old stuff's not taken out of the equation.
That's something I found interesting too. That they take a few tests and the system decides what they're suited for, and
right.
That's a lot of the stuff is things that happen in real life, but maybe not in aggregate. And if they all happened at the same time, it would be a huge problem. Right. The idea that test scores decide if you're able to let's say, study a field more. That's something that happens in Europe on a regular basis. Your education is free, but you have to pass tests to get into it. And I think Japan is largely the same in that effect.
Yeah. And you even
I
have
mean,
it here in America.
Well, you got the SATs, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna get to that.
Well, in America, we kind of bypass that in the sense that if you've got the money, you can go wherever you want.
Same with healthcare. You got the money, you get the best. You get the best money. You get the best treatment. And if you don't, well,
Exactly.
too bad.
Exactly.
Because America, we can't have it like everywhere else. Because that would make us filthy socialists if we did anything like else. If the government did anything.
Yeah.
And I also like the analogy they put on the perfect world, or where they set it up. Because you see this a lot in the other sci-fi films. I didn't know the Matrix even touched on this a little bit, where it went like, humans can't take a perfect world. If it was perfect, one of them would still go crazy and not accept it. So, and this is kind of like they're still in some form or fashion rejecting that perfect world, because if you have it to a point where you have to measure psyche levels, then it's not as perfect as you thought it was.
And this is something that is sort of explained, and again, I won't spoil it. This is sort of explained in the last episode between that Akane kind of goes over and does it, and sort of kind of says something about that. And they, that is kind of at the end that's sort of like, well, okay, I'm going to spoil it, but I'm not going to say what. She has a conversation with the civil system. And basically say, like, well, people will be able to reform the system, and basically Connie goes, well, no, eventually at some point somebody's going to come along and pull the plug. But that goes back to what humans don't want a perfect world because something's going to eventually if you had a perfect world, somebody is still going to go crazy, and somebody realized that eventually that the system isn't. Again, I'm kind of getting this is a bit spoilerific again.
Well, I can take over and just suggest that there's always another side of it, right?
Right.
That there's a human being who created that system, and human beings are flawed, and that person's flaws are going to show up in the system. It's unavoidable.
Well, they do, and again, I won't say this because it'll spoil the whole thing if I explain the system. But there is something that actually goes in with with something with the system about how it does what it does, like why, like how essentially the choices in the system are made, and they do it does actually get explained instead of just being something vague. They say no, it's this, and I won't say that because it was actually it was interesting how it's actually picked. But again, I won't say it because it'll spoil the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess. I haven't seen it myself, but my guess is that it's going to be something along the lines of, the system is created in the image of somebody's ideal, somebody's ideals for how the world should work, and this is something that's shown up in sci-fi a lot, right?
Right. I mean,
if you look at the original Star Trek series, there's a robot that destroys anything that's imperfect, and this is something that is shown up a few times in the sci-fi realm of things.
All right. I think now's a good point to kind of break things off. We're hitting about 4.5 hours of audio.
Horror.
Yeah, well, we got a lot to say.
Please cut that.
And
was-
a lot of
It's gonna be a good show this week.
and a lot of really off the wall tangents we got into.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good show this week though. It'll
And
be a
ghost mode.
in ghost mode.
Ghost Mode Part 2.
So I guess now would be a good time to record the sign off.
What?
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our show. This is Mike Ferreira signing off with blah blah blah. All right.
So Mike signing off.
Yeah.
That's what I
everyone.
heard.
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. This is Mike for signing off. How about the rest of you guys?
Team Rocket's blasting off again. That's my Pokemon joke.
This is Anthony Simpson, and sometimes while we're eating, crap, we gotta start again. I messed the joke up. I was gonna start it and I completely screwed it up. So we're gonna have to do that again here.
Go right ahead. I can splice it right back in.
Okay, and this is Anthony Simpson, and while I'm eating rice balls, okay, hold on, wait a minute here. I'm getting
The
myself.
Simpsons.
Now you're gonna get me off track here. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. This is Anthony Simpson signing off, and while sometimes I may be, you know what, screw it. This is Anthony Simpson signing off.
I hope you're going to include all of that.
Yeah, do include that part. The part where I screw up.
Outro ever.
This is Matt Brown, and if you looked me up on Google and are confused, that's not me. But I hope over time that'll be me signing off.
I'm doing check and I already blasted off, so.
Wait a minute. I think I got it now. Okay, here's bad. Pokemon reference. And while sometimes we may confuse rice balls for donuts, this is the Nerd Talk Podcast.
Yes.
Yay!
Yeah.
What the fuck is a rice ball?
Onigiri. So I was making a joke because they call them they're eating donuts when they're clearly in rice balls, and I was making a reference to that.
Might as well just call this a Pokemon episode. For goodness sakes.
But I was gonna use the nuclear option as the title.
Okay, use it.
No, everybody using
One day we have a podcast dedicated to Pokemon.
No, I thought we were gonna call the podcast on talking about North Korea again.
Yeah. We're gonna say Anthony's talking about It's gonna be Nerdy Talk episode 5. Anthony talks about North Korea.
Peek ups.
Oh shit. All right, I actually do have to sign off because it's getting fucking cold in here.
You have a window open or something? Turn your fucking heat on.
Dude, it's fucking winter.
Yeah, winter's still here.
Yeah, you're inside a house. Turn your fucking heat on.
And it's
In the north.
It's 57 degrees inside the house. So it's gonna take some time to heat up.
That's pretty cold.
Yeah.
Did you forget to turn the heater on? That doesn't seem like our problem.
No.
Yeah.
He needs not to, folks. He needs not to.
So you took care of your cat, but you didn't take care of your entire family. I get how the priorities are.
Yes. Ah, thanks as always for joining, guys. I'm not sure if we'll do one for Saturday. I'll definitely let you guys know by Tuesday, because I'm kind of thinking about doing a short one Saturday, like not a 4-hour epic, but
Yeah.
Dude, that's like fucking 7 days from now.
And
Yeah.
you know what? That'll still end up 4 hours. Even though we're only going to say it'll be an hour. Well, 5 hours, we'll still be talking.
Our
Just
listeners
wrap it
will
up.
Be still listening to this podcast when we get to next week.
So I'll think about it. Depends on how late I'm up editing the other one. This one.
Oh,
Oh yeah, it definitely will, but it'll be a good podcast, I think.
Whoa.